Here are the top stories for today, March 25, 2021. Not doctors, no problem. President Rodrigo Duterte comes in defense anew of retired military generals who are leading the country's COVID-19 response efforts. The government moves to probe the inoculation of some local officials and even a celebrity ahead of frontliners as more names appear as among those who jumped the vaccination priority queue. No halt to development amid COVID-19, the DOTR says the construction of a common station connecting major railways is almost halfway complete. And a not-so-pleasant surprise startles a man as he cries for help to have a knife blade removed from his body. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. President Rodrigo Duterte defended anew his appointment of retired military officials as the pandemic response managers. He said one does not necessarily need to be a medical professional to effectively secure deals to purchase COVID-19 vaccines. President Duterte said he needed someone with essential negotiation skills to lead efforts to purchase COVID-19 vaccines from foreign pharmaceutical firms. He explained that Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez was perfect for the job because he had such expertise. Besides Galvez, there are 3 other ex-military officers leading the government's COVID-19 response. These include Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana, Interior Secretary Eduardo Año, and Environment Secretary Roy Cimatu.
You need not be a doctor here because you are transacting a business. It is not really a matter of medical science that you are talking of.
Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque earlier explained that ex-military officers are leading the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases because they were also appointed as members of Duterte's cabinet. He said former military officers were experts in terms of logistics. Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Salvador Panelo also defended Galvez and other members of the IATF-EID, describing them as competent in the field. He said replacing IATF officials would mean replacing them with unexperienced leaders. President Rodrigo Duterte directed the Department of Health to conduct an inquiry into the supposedly unauthorized inoculation of a child of a celebrity. President Duterte refused to divulge the identity of the person who received COVID-19 vaccine jab despite not being on the government's priority list. Dismayed by the report, the president advised Health Secretary Francisco Duque III to elevate the case to the Office of the Ombudsman. The Department of the Interior and Local Government confirmed that actor Mark Anthony Fernandez got vaccinated against COVID-19 despite not being a medical frontliner. Parañaque City Mayor Edwin Olivares, however, defended Fernandez's inoculation, saying the actor is eligible to be prioritized for COVID-19 vaccination because he has comorbidities. Olivares also explained that the local government had already finished vaccinating all the healthcare workers, making Fernandez qualified to be given priority for vaccination against the coronavirus. Meantime, Duterte said some local executives have already been ordered to explain their alleged move to jump the priority line for COVID-19 vaccination. He admitted that there was a gray area in the inoculation of the local chief executives.
I think that is a universal excuse na para hindi matakot yung mga constituents. Well, ako medyo gray area yan na dapat talaga ang una yung whether or not they jump the COVID-19 line of vaccination would require a certain amount of legal study. So yun lang po, sila yung may show cause order, bakit sila ang nauna instead of following the seeing to it that the list is followed religiously. at hindi nasunod.
More than 500,000 medical frontliners have already received their first dose of coronavirus jabs. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III said this is around 62% of their total target. Duque stressed the need to strictly follow the priority listing of the government, as the number of vaccines the country has received so far is not yet enough to cover all health workers.
As of March 23, Mr. President, ang naiturok na po natin, nabakunahan natin, ay 508,332, which is 62%. Yung total na dumating is only about 30% of our requirement for the 1.7 million healthcare workers. Times 2 pa yun, Mr. President, 3.4 million ang kailangan natin na doses. So, kulang na kulang talaga yung bakuna sa ngayon, Mr. President. So, kailangan po talagang sundin yung ating pong priority listing.
Meanwhile, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno Dumagoso said the city government now has the largest and biggest vaccination with 10,000 vaccinees. This after 2,000 additional frontliners received COVID-19 jabs. Latest tallies show that a total of 10,412 Manila frontliners have been inoculated with AstraZeneca and Sinovac's CoronaVac vaccines. He said the city government followed the prioritization policy of the World Health Organization and the Department of Health. Dumagoso thanked the personnel, encoders, and vaccinators of the Manila Health Department for a job well done in the ongoing vaccination program at the Santa Ana Hospital and the Ospital ng Maynila. Commuters are urged to report violations of health protocols inside public utility vehicles. This as the government strictly enforced the implementation of the minimum health standards in public transportation. Among these are the mandatory wearing of face masks and shields, no talking and eating, ensuring adequate ventilation, frequent disinfection barring symptomatic passengers from boarding, and observing appropriate physical distancing. DOTR Undersecretary Artemio Tuazon Jr. said operators who will violate the protocols will be penalized. He also called on the public to report such violations.
Ang LTFRB po naglabas na ng memorandum, yung kanilang Memorandum 2020-061 na hinihingi po sa lahat ng operators ng public transport ang tuloy-tuloy na pagdidisinfect at masinsin na pagdidisinfect ng lahat ng ating pampublikong sasakyan. Ngayon po, pag may mahuhuli po tayo na lumalabag dito sa mga minimum health protocols na to, ay padadalahan po ito ng show cause order, at pag napatunayan po na talaga pong lumabag sila, maari po silang mamultahan o kaya pinakamalala po ay matanggalan po sila ng kanilang CPC, yung Certificate of Public Convenience, o kaya yung mga provisional authority nila para bumiyahe.
As the COVID-19 pandemic lingers, the government is bent on distributing free face masks for the poor. The Department of Trade and Industry aims to give 47 million reusable masks as part of pandemic response efforts. During President Rodrigo Duterte's taped public address Wednesday night, Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez said funds from various agencies were used to buy about 30 million face masks that will be distributed in the coming weeks. He said the bidding is underway for the Department of Budget and Management's procurement of another 17.2 million face masks. Lopez said they were also able to provide livelihood to poor communities through the said initiative.
At ang maganda po dito, aside from free masks from poor communities, pinagawa po natin ito sa mga local community sewers, yung mga mananahin po sa mga barangay na walang trabaho ngayon, para ho double purpose ho. Meron silang hanap buhay at para may trabaho sila at may kikitain sila. At yung ginawa nila ay pamimigay sa poor communities. And of course, may tulong din yung mga local manufacturers para sa maramihang volume din. And it's creating local jobs. Of course, pag dito ho ginawa.
Still to come, no strings attached, the Foreign Affairs Department says China's vaccine donation and the issue over at the Julian Felipe Reef are two unrelated matters. And consumers may be in for a sigh of relief as pork prices are seen to stabilize. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Our country has encountered several incidents. We have learned from our past.
We cannot prevent the disasters from happening, but we can mitigate their effects on our people.
The government has a well-defined and in-place response system. During disaster response, the DND plays a big role through the Secretary of National Defense, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, and the Office of Civil Defense. You can see here the Operation Center. It is a platform for coordination among different agencies involved in disaster response, and this was equipped in the year 2017. And we are building more of this kind of facilities. The DND has two bureaus that it can rely on for disaster response. First is the Armed Forces of the Philippines.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines is always at the forefront of disaster management.
Whenever there's a disaster, they are the ones that are already prepared even before an event happens.
The OCD, meanwhile, has the overall implementing arm and coordinator of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council.
The work of the NDRRMC is actually 24 hours a day monitoring what disasters will strike in the part of the country.
The role of the Armed Forces of the Philippines during disasters is to assist the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council. It is deployed anywhere in the Philippines to provide technical level search and rescue and retrieval operations. We train for water search and rescue, collapsed structure search and rescue, high-angle search and rescue, emergency medical services, and hazardous materials.
Our servicing capability to our people has improved as well, in the sense that we have seen the steady reduction of casualties. We learn to be more proactive. We prepare earlier. We prepare our people earlier. They have been improving in all these years. The professionalism, the character of our workforce, the civil defense staff cannot be oversimplified.
The Archdiocese of Manila is letting parish priests decide if they will allow the faithful to pray inside their churches at 10% capacity. Apostolic Administrator of Manila, Bishop Broderick Pabilio, said parishes can make their own decision based on existing situations. In a statement, Bishop Pabilio said the church follows the principle of subsidiarity, which means that the decisions are ultimately done on the ground by the parishes. He also maintains that a 10% capacity is not considered a mass gathering. Aside from Manila churches, the Archdiocese also covers parishes in the cities of Makati, San Juan, Mandaluyong, and Pasay. Meanwhile, the Jesus is Lord Church has announced that there will be no face-to-face gatherings in all of their chapters in the NCR Plus, which is currently under general community quarantine. It, however, advised its members to attend activities streamed on various media platforms. Catholic devotees are encouraged to hold a pilgrimage at 7 churches in Baguio City and Benguet Province to commemorate the 500th anniversary of Christianity in the country. Baguio Bishop Victor Bendico said the 7 churches would hold masses to jumpstart the year-long celebration from April 4, 2021 to April 22. From April 4 to 10, the faithful can attend scheduled masses in the churches subject to health protocols. Bendico advised those who will hold a pilgrimage to undergo confession, attend the Mass, say a prayer for the intention of the Holy Father, for the fidelity of the Filipino people to their Christian calling, prayer for the increase of priestly and religious vocations, prayer for the defense of the family, and recite the Lord's Prayer. The first documented Mass in the Philippines was held on March 31, 1521, Easter Sunday. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. said China's vaccine aid and the swarming of Chinese fishing vessels at the Julian Felipe Reef are two unrelated subjects. This amid concerns that the donations could be Beijing's way of softening the blow of the unauthorized presence of over 200 Chinese ships on the Philippine exclusive economic zone. In a Twitter post, Locsin said any diminution of commitment to the totality of our rights in the West and South China Sea would disobey President Rodrigo Duterte's United Nations declaration and is tantamount to disloyalty to the Republic. A total of 400,000 doses of CoronaVac vaccines arrived in Manila on Wednesday morning, bringing to 1 million the total COVID-19 jabs Beijing donated to the country. During the arrival of the 400,000 doses of Sinovac, Chinese Ambassador Huang Xilian described the aid as an act of goodwill to help a neighbor better respond to the pandemic. The Senate adopted a resolution condemning the rampant killings and acts of violence against members of the legal profession. Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon said the legal community was shaken early this month by a request from a police lieutenant from Calbayog City asking the regional trial court for a list of lawyers who represent terrorist communist group personalities. He said there were threats, harassment, intimidation, surveillance, and some other forms of attacks, such as rapid escalation of red tagging against lawyers. He also said that about 100 lawyers have already been murdered in the last 20 years. Senate Resolution number 691 was introduced by Drilon along with Senators Sonny Angara, Pia Cayetano, Kiko Pangilinan, Coco Pimentel III, and Francis Tolentino. It urges President Rodrigo Duterte to take the necessary steps to ensure their safety and protection. The construction of the Common Station in Metro Manila is 48.5% complete, according to the Department of Transportation. The Common Station near the corner of EDSA and North Avenue in Quezon City is scheduled to be finished by December 2021. The project's nearing completion comes after almost a decade of delay caused by issues on location. To date, the station's Area B or atrium is 100% complete. The Common Station will seamlessly interconnect the LRT-1, LRT-2, MRT-3, and the under-construction Metro Rail Transit Line 7 and the Metro Manila Subway. Once completed, the station is expected to serve about 478,000 passengers daily. Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Salvador Panelo on Wednesday is optimistic that the delivery of live hogs to Metro Manila would help stabilize the retail prices of pork products in public markets. This after over 200,000 hogs have already arrived in Metro Manila since February 8. The Department of Agriculture on Monday transported over 3,700 live hogs to Metro Manila. To address the resulting increase in prices of pork products, President Rodrigo Duterte has signed Executive Order 124, which implements a price ceiling on select pork and chicken products in Metro Manila until April 8. The DA meanwhile transmitted to Duterte's office a draft proclamation declaring a state of national emergency in the country. Agriculture Secretary William Dar explained that the African swine fever has already spread to 12 regions nationwide to date. He said a state of national emergency would enable concerned agencies to work together to prevent the control of further spread. Up next, mayors who allegedly jumped the vaccination priority queue speak up on the issue. And we tell you this man's plight as a knife blade has been in his body for over a year. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito. Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte has joined the millions of Filipinos who have registered for the Philippine Identification System or PhilSys National ID System. The mayor had her biometric records taken along with various government employees at the Barangay Catalunan Grande registration site on Tuesday. The city government urged Dabaweños to register for the national ID whenever registration is available in their respective barangays. The Philippine Statistics Authority aims to initially register 5 million heads of low-income families in the country, after which regular registration for the general public follows until the year 2022. The national ID shall be a valid proof of identity for Filipinos and resident aliens that shall be a means of simplifying government processes, transactions, enrollment in schools, and the opening of bank accounts. Several local officials went under fire for being able to get a COVID-19 shot ahead of frontliners who were prioritized for immunization. On the other hand, a few others who received the privilege of getting vaccinated chose to hold back. Chris Mundo has the story.
Mayor Melesio Yap Jr. of Escalante City, Negros Occidental, defended himself after getting vaccinated ahead of other frontliners, saying it was the call of duty. Yap was among those inoculated with Sinovac's CoronaVac during the rollout of the vaccination program on March 19. Yap said he was made part of a substitution list of people eligible for vaccination, as only 47 individuals expressed intent to be vaccinated. For his part, Legazpi City Mayor Noel Rosal said he has actually no plans of getting vaccinated against COVID-19, but he was listed by health authorities as among those to be inoculated to boost vaccine confidence among health workers. He added that this was to encourage various healthcare workers assigned in villages who were unwilling to be inoculated, especially with China's Sinovac jabs. He said his inoculation in the initial list of vaccine recipients was approved by DOH Bicol Director Dr. Ernie Vera. On the other hand, the Emergency Operation Task Force in Bacolod City postponed plans to vaccinate Mayor Evelio Leonardia and several village officials after the DILG called out these local chief executives. Leonardia was scheduled to be vaccinated in rites set at the Bacolod City Government Center on Wednesday. Last week, Leonardia, the national president of the League of Cities of the Philippines, lauded the decision of the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases to include local chief executives in the priority sectors for vaccination against COVID-19. On Wednesday night, President Rodrigo Duterte named 4 more mayors who allegedly jumped the vaccination priority listing. This came after the Department of Interior and local government ordered 5 mayors to explain their inoculation ahead of frontliners. The DILG also advised all local government officials to strictly comply with the government's policy, prioritizing health workers in the vaccination drive. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Crismundo.
In our news overseas, Germany is set to extend lockdown restrictions until April 18 amid a sharp rise in the number of infections. Chancellor Angela Merkel expressed the severity of the situation in Germany with rising infections, heightened pressure on intensive care units, and the spread of a more contagious variant. If an area has an incidence rate of more than 100 for 3 consecutive days, harsher lockdown measures will once again apply. The stricter lockdown over the Easter holidays comes amid calls by some health experts for a full lockdown with a night curfew. Merkel's coalition government is under intense public pressure for its handling of the pandemic crisis, especially when it comes to its slow vaccination program. Merkel said earlier this month that doctors' offices should be able to vaccinate patients starting April 1st. A 25-year-old man from Kidapawan City is seeking help from Good Samaritans to remove a knife blade embedded in his abdomen for more than a year now. Kent Ryan Tomau said he was surprised to find in his x-ray results that a 4-inch blade was still inside his abdomen. He was attacked with a knife late last year. He discovered the knife through a x-ray while he was applying for a job at a mining firm in Agusan del Sur. While he recalled the stabbing incident, Tomau said he only trusted the doctors who treated him and could not remember if he underwent an x-ray. He also could not remember the medical facility where he was treated. Tomau has not decided on filing charges against his previous doctors, but he said he only hopes to get operated on so the knife edge can be safely removed from his abdomen. Here's another look at today's biggest stories. Not doctors, no problem. President Rodrigo Duterte comes in defense anew of retired military generals who are leading the country's COVID-19 response efforts. The government moves to probe the inoculation of some local officials and even a celebrity ahead of frontliners as more names appear as among those who jumped the vaccination priority queue. No halt to development amid COVID-19, the DOTR says the construction of a common station connecting major railways is almost halfway complete. And a not-so-pleasant surprise startles a man as he cries for help to have a knife blade removed from his body. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day, everyone. Stay safe.